You are listening to the Pregnancy Podcast with Vanessa Merton. Hello, thank you for tuning into the Pregnancy Podcast. In today's episode, we're talking about how much pregnancy weight gain is healthy and what actually matters. Your doctor or midwife will track your weight throughout your pregnancy. And for many expecting moms, stepping on the scale is a source of anxiety. This episode breaks down healthy pregnancy weight gain, including where the guidelines come from, how much weight is recommended for your body, and where all that weight actually goes. We'll examine what the research shows, including the fact that most women do not gain within the recommended ranges. You'll learn why lifestyle changes have a smaller effect than you might expect during pregnancy, and hear why the number on the scale is only one small piece of your health and what you should actually focus your energy on. You can see the full article and all of the resources for this episode at pregnancypodcast.com/weightgain. Weight is only one number, and it can carry a lot of anxiety in pregnancy. This is exactly why I dig into the research behind these questions instead of leaving you with a guideline and no context. Become a Pregnancy Podcast Premium member to get access to every single episode, and it's all ad-free, including new episodes every week. Check it out at pregnancypodcast.com/premium. Zoller goes above and beyond in formulating their prenatal plus DHA. It's made with high-quality ingredients like the active form of folate, bioavailable iron, and essential nutrients like omega-3s. In the month of July 2026, save 40% on the Zoller Prenatal Plus DHA on Amazon with the code ZPrenatal40. And you can always see the current promo code at pregnancypodcast.com/vitamin. VTech is the #1 baby monitor brand in North America and trusted by millions of families. If you want high-resolution video and a monitor that sees the whole room, the VTech RM7968 has 4K video, a 7-inch parent unit, and 360-degree pan, tilt, and zoom. It's available at Target. Check it out at pregnancypodcast.com/VTech. 8 Sheep Organics makes amazing 100% clean natural pregnancy products. From skincare to treating common symptoms like stretch marks with clinically proven ingredients, 8 Sheep Organics has you covered. Every product comes with a 100-day happiness guarantee. Try it risk-free, and if you're not 100% happy with your purchase, simply send them an email and they'll get you a refund, no questions asked. Check out 8 Sheep Organics and save 10% when you go to pregnancypodcast.com/8sheep. Let's start with why your care provider tracks your weight. We like metrics. Measurements let us assess where things stand and track changes over time. And in medicine, metrics are especially useful because they help providers set guidelines and monitor your health from one visit to the next. Weight is one of the simplest metrics there is. And during pregnancy, your care provider uses your weight to monitor your health and your baby's and to watch for signs of certain complications. Gaining a healthy amount of weight is important because both ends of the spectrum carry some risk. Gaining too little or too much during pregnancy is associated with low and high birth weights, preterm delivery, gestational diabetes, preeclampsia, a higher risk of cesarean, and postpartum hemorrhage. A large meta-analysis of more than 1.3 million women confirmed that gaining below the recommendations raised the risk of a smaller baby and preterm birth, while gaining above them raised the risk of a large baby, that's known as macrosomia, and cesarean delivery. The good news is that your risk for these complications is lower when you gain within a healthy range. And that's really the whole point of tracking your weight. It's not about hitting a perfect number. It's about staying in a range that supports a healthy pregnancy. Before we get into pregnancy-specific guidelines, you have to understand body mass index because the recommendations for weight gain are built around this concept. BMI is a simple calculation, and it estimates body fat based on your height and weight. This is something that has been widely used in medicine for decades, largely because it's very quick and easy to calculate. Life insurance companies actually created the first weight tables as a way to assess mortality risk. A mathematician was the one who developed the underlying calculation back in the 1800s, and then the term body mass index was coined in the 70s. BMI divides your weight in kilograms by your height in meters squared. If you want to find your BMI, there's calculators all over online, and I'll include a link to one in the article for this episode. There's 4 different BMI categories. Underweight is a BMI below 18.5. Normal weight is a BMI of 18.5 to less than 25. Overweight is a BMI of 25 to less than 30. And then obese is a BMI of 30 or higher. And this is further classified into Class 1, which ranges between 30 and 35. Class 2 goes from 35 to 40, and then Class 3 is 40 or greater. Here's the important part that you need to know. BMI is far from a perfect measure of your health, and it has its limitations. Because it only looks at height and weight, it can overestimate body fat if you are muscular, or underestimate it if you've lost muscle. It also says nothing about where you carry fat, which matters for health risk. There's evidence that other metrics, like waist circumference, can actually predict health risks just as well or better. And although there have been proposals for alternative calculations over the years, none have replaced BMI in everyday practice. The medical community itself has increasingly acknowledged the shortcomings of this calculation. In 2023, the American Medical Association adopted a new policy recognizing the significant limitations of BMI. They pointed out that BMI is based largely on data from previous generations of non-Hispanic white populations and does not account for differences across sex, age, race, and ethnicity. As a result, the American Medical Association now recommends that BMI be used alongside other measures of health and not just on its own. The fact that BMI is imperfect doesn't mean that carrying excess weight has no health consequences. Even with its flaws, BMI is still a useful screening tool that flags risk at a population level. Although your BMI category is not the full picture of your health, a higher BMI does raise certain risks. It's worth being very straightforward about how significant this is, because obesity is both common and serious. In the United States, the prevalence of obesity among adults is 40.3%. That means that roughly 4 in 10 adults have a BMI in the obese range. This rate has not increased significantly over the past decade, and that was after a long climb, so it does appear to have leveled off, but still, these numbers are high. Obesity is classified as a chronic disease. According to the CDC, it increases the risk of hypertension, type 2 diabetes, coronary heart disease, stroke, and certain cancers. And this is not just a problem in the United States. The World Health Organization reports that worldwide, about 1 in 8 people are living with obesity, and that figure has more than doubled since 1990. The World Health Organization reports that in 2021, a higher than optimal BMI was linked to an estimated 3.7 million deaths worldwide. And that was from conditions like cardiovascular disease, diabetes, and cancer. I share these numbers. I don't want to frighten you, but this is the reality. Excess weight carries risk, and that is why it's worth taking seriously. If your BMI is outside the normal weight range, your provider will likely keep a closer eye on certain things. But this attention does work in your favor. Having a higher BMI does not mean that you cannot have a healthy pregnancy, but it is associated with higher risk. Even from preconception, research shows that obesity can affect fertility. There's significant evidence that a higher BMI can increase the risk of many adverse pregnancy outcomes. This includes miscarriage, stillbirth, preeclampsia, and gestational diabetes. Studies also link higher BMIs to higher rates of cesarean birth. And there are documented risks to babies that are born to mothers with higher BMIs, including birth defects, macrosomia, and impaired growth. Macrosomia is a term that describes a large baby. Generally, it's defined as a birth weight of over 4,000 grams, which is about 8 pounds, 13 ounces. What does this all mean for you in practice? If you have a higher BMI, your provider may label your pregnancy as high risk. As a result, they may screen you for conditions like gestational diabetes earlier, and they may recommend additional ultrasounds or other monitoring throughout your prenatal care. This can feel intimidating and scary, but this extra attention is there to help catch and manage anything early on, so it's really a good thing. I know I've shared a lot of scary statistics. Let's zoom out a little bit here because your weight and your BMI are shaped by a huge number of factors. Every part of your life influences this: your genetics, health conditions, your hormones, daily habits like sleep, diet, and exercise. In a perfect world, you would already be at a healthy weight before getting pregnant, but for many expecting moms, that is not the reality. In fact, the share of women who enter pregnancy with obesity has risen from 26% in 2016 to 32% in 2022. So it's about 1 in 3. Your starting point is your starting point, and your doctor or midwife will work with you from wherever you are. Changing or maintaining your weight is a long process, and it involves your whole lifestyle. This isn't a single number that you can force during 9 months. For a lot of women, focusing on weight is stressful. And no matter what weight you start out with, many expecting moms have some level of anxiety about gaining weight in pregnancy. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists adopts their guidelines on pregnancy weight gain from the Institute of Medicine. They recommend that your provider determine your BMI at your first prenatal visit so that they can counsel you on an appropriate range. If you start out underweight, you're expected to gain more. If you start out overweight, then theoretically you should gain less. So for a single pregnancy, meaning you're pregnant with just one baby, if you start out underweight, so you have a BMI below 18.5, the recommended weight gain is 28 to 40 pounds. That's 13 to 18 kilograms. If you start at a normal weight, so you have a BMI of 18.5 to less than 25, the recommended weight gain is 25 to 35 pounds, or 11 to 16 kilograms. If you're overweight, so you have a BMI of 25 to less than 30, it's recommended that you gain between 15 and 25 pounds. That's about 7 to 11 kilograms. And then if you're obese when you start your pregnancy, so you have a BMI of 30 or higher, the recommended weight gain is 11 to 20 pounds, or about 5 to 9 kilograms. If you're pregnant with twins, or you're extra lucky and you're pregnant with more than that, the recommended amounts are higher. So with twins, they're roughly double. I won't go through those on the audio here, but they are included in the article. These guidelines don't come without a debate. According to ACOG, some physicians have pushed back, arguing that these targets are too high, especially for overweight and obese women. Others have raised concerns that the guidelines don't differentiate between degrees of obesity. Bottom line here, these ranges are a useful starting point, but they're not a rigid rule that's going to fit every single person. ACOG's overall position does reflect some of this nuance. The organization says that the Institute of Medicine ranges provide a basis for practice, but that individualized care and clinical judgment still matter. To put their guidance into very plain terms, if you're gaining less than the recommended range, but your baby's growing appropriately, that can be perfectly fine. Your provider has to balance many things at once, including your baby's growth, your risk of complications, how much weight you may retain after birth. The key is not solely focusing on one number. It's to use this data to have a conversation with your doctor or midwife. It may be helpful to understand where all of this weight that you gain actually goes. When you're stepping on a scale at every appointment, it's natural to just assume that it's fat or that it's all in your belly. But that's not entirely true. Most of your pregnancy weight is your baby and everything that's supporting your baby. Although every mom is different, let's go through some estimates or averages to give you a helpful picture. Your breasts grow about 1 to 3 pounds, or about 0.5 to 1.4 kilograms. Your uterus adds about 2 pounds. The placenta at birth will weigh about 1.5 pounds. Your amniotic fluid adds 2 pounds. Your increased blood volume adds another 3 to 4 pounds. Other increased fluids contribute to another 2 to 3 pounds. Your fat stores add about 6 to 8 pounds. And then by the end of your pregnancy, a baby weighs an average of 7 to 8 pounds. When you add all of this up, the majority of your pregnancy weight gain is not all fat. It's your baby, it's your placenta, your blood, fluids, and all of the tissue growth that's needed to support a healthy pregnancy. So keeping that in mind might make stepping on the scale feel a little bit less stressful. Another helpful thing to know is that weight gain is not linear over 9 months. Knowing the general pattern can help you understand what your provider is looking for. Your doctor or midwife will be charting your weight over time. So they chart this in your file. In the first trimester, you should only gain a few pounds. Some women gain almost nothing at all. Somewhere in that range is normal. Then through the second and third trimesters, you should see a steady, gradual increase. So if you started out underweight or at a normal weight, you can expect to gain about 1 pound per week. If you started out overweight or obese, then expect closer to 0.5 pound a week. That would be what the guidelines say. Your provider is not looking for a perfect number every single visit. They're looking at the overall trend over time. So don't read too much into any single weigh-in. With that being said, a sudden, rapid jump in weight, especially in the third trimester, is different from normal gradual gain. Very fast weight gain, like if you gain 2 or more pounds in a single week, could be due to fluid retention rather than just fat or your growing baby. This kind of rapid gain can sometimes be a sign of preeclampsia. That's a serious condition marked by high blood pressure, especially if it comes along with swelling in your face or hands, a bad headache, or changes in your vision. To be clear, this is not the everyday water retention, the puffy ankles that can be a normal part of pregnancy. This is a sudden spike on the scale paired with some of these symptoms. Next, we're going to talk about what weight gain actually looks like in the real world and what you can actually do about it. Before we do that, I would like to thank the sponsors that have supported this episode. A lot of companies have exclusive discounts for pregnancy podcast listeners, and you can always see discounts and promo codes at pregnancypodcast.com/resources. When it comes to prenatal vitamins, the options can be overwhelming. I know because I've spent a lot of time and energy looking into the nutrients that matter most during pregnancy and which forms are optimal for you and your baby. My number one recommendation for a prenatal vitamin is the Zoller Prenatal Plus DHA. And that's because they go above and beyond in formulating their vitamin with high quality ingredients, like the active form of folate, bioavailable iron, and essential nutrients like omega-3s. Zoller bases their formula on the latest scientific evidence. They're not going off of outdated RDAs that can lag years behind the research. They use high-quality bioavailable ingredients, and that's always my top priority for any vitamin or supplement. An example of this is that they use ferocal iron. That provides optimal absorption, it's gentle on your stomach, and it's non-constipating, which might not sound like a big deal, but it is because constipation is already common during pregnancy, and some prenatal vitamins can actually make it worse. In the month of July 2026, save 40% off the Zoller Prenatal Plus DHA on Amazon with the code ZPrenatal40. And you can always see the current promo code at pregnancypodcast.com/vitamin. A baby monitor is one of those things that you will rely on multiple times a day for years. And it makes it worth investing in a model that delivers clear video, solid night vision, and room coverage that actually reaches every corner. The VTech RM7968 video baby monitor is built exactly for that. It comes with 2 cameras, so you can watch 2 rooms on a split screen, or you can get 2 angles of 1 room. The cameras deliver 4K ultra high definition video to your phone, tablet, or the 7-inch color LCD parent unit. It has 360-degree pan, tilt, and zoom, and it has super night vision, so it keeps the view clear even in low light. There's a touch adaptive multicolor night light, a temperature sensor to keep track of the temperature in your baby's room, and you get 2-way talk, soothing sounds, and lullabies. Plus, free remote live access through your phone or a tablet with no subscription fees. VTech is the #1 baby monitor brand in North America, and they're trusted by millions of families. The VTech RM7968 is available at Target. Check it out at pregnancypodcast.com/VTech. Dynamic ad. Let's get back to today's episode. Now that we've covered all the guidelines, let's take a look at how this actually plays out in the real world. Even with clear recommendations, most pregnant women do not gain within the suggested ranges. One study that examined more than 18,000 pregnancies found that only about 25% of women gained weight within the recommended range. About 21% gained less, and almost 53% gained more. And this held true across the board, regardless of pre-pregnancy weight. So if you find yourself outside of that recommended range, know that you are in the majority. You are not an exception here. The fact that most women don't gain weight within the recommended ranges doesn't mean that you should ignore them. Most research on the Institute of Medicine guidelines finds that staying within these ranges is associated with better pregnancy outcomes. So far, a lot of this conversation has really centered on gaining too much. And that makes sense given that that's the more common outcome. However, gaining too little also carries risk. I mentioned earlier a meta-analysis of more than 1.3 million women that found that gaining below the recommended range was associated with a higher risk of preterm birth and a small for gestational age baby. If you started your pregnancy underweight, meeting that recommended range is especially important. Remember, your baby is depending on you for nourishment, and consistently gaining too little weight can affect their growth. If you're struggling to gain enough weight, the first step is to talk to your doctor or midwife. There may be a very obvious reason, like you're dealing with nausea and morning sickness, or you have a small appetite. The goal is not to force weight gain. It's really to make sure that your baby's growing well and that they're getting what they need. For some women, gaining weight isn't just difficult, it feels impossible, especially early on, especially if you're dealing with severe nausea and vomiting. It's possible that you actually lose weight in the first trimester. A very severe form of this is called hyperemesis gravidarum. That goes beyond typical morning sickness and can involve significant weight loss. Research links hyperemesis gravidarum to a higher risk of preterm birth and low birth weight, and that's largely because of the undernutrition and the low weight gain that come with it. If you are having trouble keeping foods or fluids down, please do not just try to tough this out on your own. Reach out to your doctor or midwife. This is something that can be treatable, and getting support can help protect both you and your baby. It would seem like the obvious solution to avoiding excess weight gain is diet and exercise. But the evidence here isn't that clear. A meta-analysis of 36 studies that included over 12,000 women found that diet, physical activity, and combined approaches reduced weight gain during pregnancy, possibly reduced certain maternal complications, and had no negative effect on the baby. This all sounds great until you look at the actual numbers. The actual reduction in weight gain was only about 1.5 pounds, or about 0.7 kilograms. This may be statistically significant to a researcher, but 1.5 pounds in practical terms is not very much. The big takeaway here is that diet and lifestyle interventions had a fairly small effect on total weight gain. And remember, this is looking at this over the course of a pregnancy. I do want to make sure that you don't take the wrong lesson from this. Diet and lifestyle play a massive role in your weight over the course of your life, but they're not going to transform it overnight. And 9 months is a pretty short window. The small effect during pregnancy doesn't mean that these habits don't matter. It means that the payoff really comes from consistency over the long term, not from trying to overhaul everything while you're pregnant. Your big goal during pregnancy should really be steady, healthy habits rather than aiming for a specific number on the scale. We have more information about diet and exercise than we ever had. And ideally, your doctor or midwife is well-versed in these topics, and they can help you make lifestyle changes that really serve you, not just during your pregnancy, but for your whole life beyond that. The reality is that most health professionals don't get a lot of training here. One study found that more than half of physicians trained in the United States received no formal education in physical activity. According to a report that surveyed 121 U.S. medical schools, 71% did not meet the recommended 25 hours of nutrition education. 36% provide less than half of that. And this isn't just a problem in the United States. A systematic review of 24 studies found that medical students worldwide are not getting adequate nutrition education. This may help explain why the advice that you get can sometimes feel vague. Being told to get 150 minutes of moderate intensity aerobic activity each week is not helpful if you don't already have a habit of movement. And the same thing goes for being told to eat healthy whole foods, and I know I'm probably guilty of that too. Even the advice to add 340 calories a day in the second trimester and 450 in the third trimester could be hard to act on because who's really counting every calorie they eat? The guidance isn't wrong, it's just not very actionable on its own. Given everything we've talked about so far, you know the guidelines, you know that most pregnant moms are not gaining within them. What are you supposed to do with all of this information? First, do expect to have a conversation with your provider about your weight during pregnancy. That will probably happen at the first appointment. Also, knowing whether you are inside those suggested ranges is useful because it can flag whether you're on track or if you want to make some adjustments. Let your doctor or midwife keep track of these numbers. Even for professionals who are well trained in diet and exercise, how much can really be covered in a prenatal appointment that lasts 15 minutes or less? Recording your weight is quick and easy, but an in-depth conversation about your diet and lifestyle is not. So let the scale be the job of your care provider, and you should be putting your own time and energy somewhere more productive. The reason I recommend this is that for a lot of women, it triggers anxiety to step on a scale at every appointment. You're worried about gaining too much or gaining too little. If you're someone who already stresses out about your weight, this can be a really difficult part of your prenatal care. Pregnancy comes with the biggest physical transformation that you will go through than any other time in your life. And it's completely normal to have complicated feelings about it. In fact, there's a whole episode on body image during pregnancy that dives into the research on that topic and evidence-based things that you can do to feel better about your body. There's a few practical things that can help here. One, you always have the option to step on the scale backwards. If you don't want to look at it, if it's stressing you out, then you don't need to look at it. Let your care provider take care of that. You can ask them to only tell you if something needs your attention. While you are getting weighed at every prenatal appointment, you don't have to weigh yourself at home. There's no rule saying that you have to track your weight outside of your appointments. Also, if you have any history of an eating disorder or disordered eating, please tell your doctor or midwife. Pregnancy has this constant focus on weight and food, and that can be especially triggering. ACOG specifically advises letting your provider know so they can support you. There's no shame in this. This is exactly the kind of thing that your care team is here to help you with. So, bottom line here, if the scale is affecting your mental health, if you're stressed out about it, please bring that up with your doctor or midwife. If focusing too much on the scale is stressing you out, if it's affecting your mental health, please bring that up with your doctor or midwife. So, what on earth should you actually focus on? So, if the number on the scale is not where your energy is best spent, then where should it go? Pregnancy is the perfect time to focus on your overall health. If healthy habits are new for you, this is a great moment to start. Remember, your body is working harder right now than at any other point in your life. You are literally building a human, and your relationship with food, movement, and lifestyle will become one of the biggest influences on your child. The thing is, building healthy habits takes time. So I encourage you to take it one step at a time. There are many episodes that dive deeper into all the aspects of this: diet, sleep, hydration. If you want to get really granular, there's episodes on sugar, natural and artificial sweeteners, plant-based diets, protein. On the movement side, there's episodes on exercise, running, walking, strength training, yoga. While these episodes are all geared towards expecting moms and do get specific into pregnancy, these are all tools and habits that will serve you throughout your entire life as a mother. Educating yourself on which habits to build and which choices to make is a great starting place. And over time, making healthier choices gets easier. If it helps, you can pay attention to other signs of health besides just the number on the scale, like how you feel, how your clothes fit, how your energy level is. Any step towards eating well, moving your body, prioritizing the basics of your health, like sleep and hydration, will support your weight in the long run. Being mindful about your weight during pregnancy is one thing, but working on being healthier for the long term is far more valuable. I do want to touch on postpartum weight because the pressure around your weight does not end when you have your baby. And a lot of the weight that you gain, like your baby, the placenta, a lot of that fluid will disappear pretty quickly with birth, but the rest of it comes off gradually, and that's by design. Your body builds up fat stores in part to support recovery and to breastfeed. There's a lot of cultural pressure to bounce back quickly, and I would like to encourage you to let that go. Remember, it takes 9 months to grow a baby, and it's completely reasonable for it to take time to feel like yourself again. Losing weight too aggressively in those early weeks can really work against your recovery and your energy. This 4th trimester, the 3 months after you have your baby, is a massive adjustment period. And I hope that you give yourself the same grace on the other side of birth that you're hopefully giving yourself right now. To bring all of this together, healthy pregnancy weight gain matters, right? The guidelines give you a useful range to aim for based on your starting point, but at the same time, most women are not landing within these ranges. Lifestyle changes will move the number, but on a long-term scale. Your provider will track your weight as a measure of your health. These metrics can be useful, but they do have limitations. And keep in mind that most of your pregnancy weight is your baby and everything supporting your baby. You're not just putting on fat stores. The number on the scale is one small metric. And it's your provider's job to keep an eye on that. So let them focus on that. You focus on the habits that actually build long-term health. And in the process, try to be kind to yourself. Think of it as being kind to yourself as you would be to a friend that's going through the same thing. Even if you don't love stepping on the scale at every appointment, this is a good thing. It opens the door to a conversation with your doctor or midwife about your general health overall. If you're gaining more or less than expected, ask your care provider how your baby's growing and if there's other metrics that they can take into account, because that's really what matters most. If stepping on the scale is stressing you out, if it's affecting your mental health, if you have a history of disordered eating, please bring that up with your doctor or midwife. Your care provider can adjust how they're handling those weigh-ins at every appointment. They can connect you with a dietitian or potentially bring in additional support. You and your doctor, your midwife, have the same goal, and that's a healthy pregnancy for you and your baby. And that doesn't just include your physical health, that also includes your mental well-being. To recap everything that we've talked about in today's episode, we started with why your care provider tracks your weight during pregnancy. We went through the guidelines, how those were built, and what that means depending on your BMI and where you're starting out. We also talked about the limitations of BMI. Then we dug into a lot of research on how your weight can affect your pregnancy. Talked about the research showing that most women don't actually gain within the recommended ranges, and talked about how diet and exercise may move the number less than you think over the course of 9 months, but the importance of building healthy habits, because pregnancy is really the start of an incredible journey where you get to be a mom and you get to raise a kid. And the habits that you have around movement and exercise, diet, basic habits like staying hydrated and sleeping will be a big influence on your child. I would like to thank you for tuning into the Pregnancy Podcast today. I hope that you find this episode helpful. If you have a friend that's pregnant, please share the podcast. So many listeners discover this through recommendations, and I appreciate you sharing it. As always, you can contact me, Vanessa, at pregnancypodcast.com. You can read the full article and see all of the resources that accompany this episode at pregnancypodcast.com/weightgain. If this episode is helping you think past the number on the scale, there's so much more where this came from. With Pregnancy Podcast Premium, you get access to every episode, and it's all ad-free. Check it out at pregnancypodcast.com/premium.